no, I've turned my microphone up. Hopefully you can hear me now. So you probably didn't hear anything that I just said, which is totally fine. In fact, I'm going to make sure that I've got the chat up all the time. I heard some steps and despawn. Thanks, Drycoast. Hey, great to see people in here, even though I haven't really mentioned much about this at all. Hopefully you can hear me now. Let me know in the chat if... Yeah, thanks, Slaying. Thanks, everyone, for joining me. So, what I was saying... Before I realised that, of course, you can't hear me because my microphone is completely muted. So on a Thursday, we release tutorials regularly. We have a long one and a short one, and they're launched at like 5 o'clock on a Thursday, looking at specific things you can do in Crayta and looking at some game development and some API calls that Crayta has. And then recently we started running some workshops. So every other Thursday, 4 till 6, we run a workshop. This week there's a workshop and it's on making magic wands. And so, you can join that. There's a limit of 15 people. It's a live workshop with me. And we're going to make some magic wands and do a bit of scripting and a bit of aesthetic flair and some sound and make a bit of a game out of it. Who knows what's going to happen. But Mondays, what is going on today? Today is Monday. It's the first day of the week. And what I'm going to be doing in this stream on a Monday is essentially looking at a specific part of game development and kind of deep diving a single aspect of that. So for this first part, I thought I would look at something that I've been playing around with a lot of, and that's like the adventure game or RPG game genre, and specifically looking at how we can make some funky cool UI stuff, but specifically like how can we tell our player all of these stats and these magic and health and all of this stuff that, all of this information flying at the player without them getting overly bombarded constantly. And there's some amazing games out there that already do this super well. Loads of cool games in Crayta with some amazing UI. And so I'm taking a bit of inspiration from other games that I've played in Crayta, and I'm going to be looking at let's make some user interface. Let's make a HUD that kind of works really nicely and displays all of the information we need. So I'm going to do it in a couple of steps. I'm going to go kind of easy with a health bar, and we're going to use the health package, and I'm going to look at how we can incorporate a health package in a game that doesn't already have one. Then I'm going to have a look at making a magic bar, and that's a little bit more involved because it involves collectibles and using the magic, so going up and down the bar and all that sort of stuff. So it's a little bit more bespoke than the health one. And then if we've got time, I'd love to look at an XP bar, not like Crayta XP, not like that kind of XP where it's like the whole of Crayta. I know you can earn XP for the battle pass, which you can see here. Yeah, here. So you earn XP and you level up and you get awesome cosmetics and things like that. More like an in-game XP for an RPG type game. So you might make an RPG game and you might say, hey, I want players to have like an in-game XP that levels them up and then they can get stronger and all that. So yeah, I'll probably have a look at that if we have time. But for now, let's create a game. So I'm actually going to start from scratch, but I'm going to use some awesome packages to make things look a bit livelier than if it's just as an empty game. I'm going to use the adventure blueprint. I'm going to have a look at my chat as well because I'm really good at just talking and completely not looking at the chat. So hi everyone in chat, how's it going? Thank you so much for pointing out that I didn't have audio. I really appreciate that you've helped me out there. Cool. Adventure game, you have my full attention. Yes, Sinjin, here we go. So I'm going to create a new adventure game, and this is going to be called UI Magic UI Stream. No, it's just going to be called Magic UI. I'll name it something awesome when I have a full game idea. In fact, I've started a game idea with this, but we'll get on to that. We'll have a look at that in a bit. Yeah, and let's go to this location or this vibe. So we're going to create a new game just so that you can see the process of how I go about incorporating a health package into an adventure game. And many of you, or some of you might have done this before. Some of you might have done this once and be like, I can't quite remember how to do that. And some of you might never have installed a package and might be terrified of packages. And that's okay. That's what this is all about. Everyone started somewhere. And there was a time I hadn't installed a package or even started a game. And we all start somewhere. So if that's you, that's totally cool. Ask questions. Ask away. I'm here to answer questions as well as talk continuously for 2 hours and hopefully not bore you. Okay. Right, so we don't need like loads of things here. What I'm going to do is install a package. There's one I've been playing around with. It's not one of mine. It's SBB, Slate Bird, Sovereign Games. And it's the, not NPCs. Oh, there's so many, isn't there? Medieval Castle? Dungeon Ruins. I've been playing with this recently. It's good. If anyone is into cool dungeons and stuff like that, check this package out. It's very cool. Right, so I've installed that package. What I did there was I looked in packages, and you could look for, let's say you want to make a, I don't know, an RPG with a dungeon in it. You could type in dungeon and then you can go, oh, look at all of this cool dungeon stuff. And you can install things and play around with it. And then when you're happy, you know what one you want to use. You could delete everything else and just go with the one you want to use. I'm using this one. So I typed in Dungeon Ruins and this one comes up and it's super cool. So that's a good opportunity to use that. And I'm going to just add it to my game world. So I've installed that package. You can see it in your package list here. Oh, I should say I'm in advanced mode. This is basic mode, which you might start in. And you can still, press L on your keyboard and get up the community there and, still install packages. I'm going to use advanced mode. I'm an advocate of advanced mode and I use that all the time. But you should be able to do the start of this, or at least the bulk of this, with the health bar using basic mode. Anyway, back to advanced mode. So I've installed SBB Dungeon Ruins and Lighting, and everyone's like, yeah, get to the point, Andy. When are you going to add it? So let's add it. So if I go to my templates tab in my library, I can see the SBB things here. They're the ones that have come in with that package. And I'm going to grab the Ruin Temple and plonk that in my game. And then press escape to get rid of it. And look at this, it's so cool. Anyway, I'm going to plonk that in my game world and delete some stuff. So right click it in the world tree and unparent it, because I'm actually just going to get rid of the terrain. I'm going to put it at position 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and the rotation 0, just so that it's very easy. All the numbers, keep the numbers easy. Let's get rid of all these things that I don't need. Delete. Put the start location in there, the adventure in there. Unlock the terrain. You can't do anything with it while it's locked, so unlock it and then delete the terrain. And that is it. Now I have this as all that is in my game. And hopefully if I press F5, that should build and run the game. And that's the kind of loop that we're going to be using. So essentially what you do is you do some stuff in the editor and then you press F5 to build and run the game and you get to test it. And it's instant. You press F5 and it just works straight away. And what I want to do, so an adventure blueprint. This game is based on the adventure blueprint. And what is the adventure blueprint? Essentially, what the adventure blueprint allows you to do is it has some collectible items and a shop. So you can run around and collect things and you can sell and buy them in the shop. And it's just the base template for a wide variety of game types, and it works really nicely with the like the RPG style where you're going to run around and collect things and then level up and all of that sort of stuff. So we're going to use it, but we're going to add some obstacles. So we've got the adventure blueprint, we've got a dungeon already out the box, ready to go. What we're going to do is we're going to add some obstacles, and then we're going to add a health bar, and let's look at how we can make the obstacles hurt us. Because the adventure blueprint doesn't have health in it. And that's an important part of my game. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask away in the chat. Hopefully, yeah, I can see there's some people here, so that's really cool. Thanks for joining me, everyone. So we've got our ruined temple. Let's now add a health bar. So we're going to go to the community. Going to look for health. And I'm specifically going to check the Crayta packages checkbox. And you can tell the Crayta packages, they have the little Crayta symbol next to them. And they're like the official packages that are created by the dev team and fully supported and checked against builds that are coming out and all that sort of thing. So we've got the Crayta package. I'm going to install that health bar like that. Install. And that's now come down. So that's now integrated in my game. And so to actually make it usable in my game, the next thing I need to do is simply I go to my player template. So over here, we've got our list of all of the templates in our game world, the same templates that you'll see here. But this list allows us to focus on one of those templates and edit it. So I'm going to go to the player template just there, and just going to check. Yep, we're all good. So my player template, and I'm going to click entity, create child, script folder, and this is I'm going to add the player health script folder that came down with my my installation there. So yeah, player health, and by doing that, you can see it's just popped up down here. And the player health script folder, it has a couple of things. It's got a health script and it's got a health widget. So the health script essentially is looking after the game logic, the stuff that happens in game to do with health. The health widget is what you see right here in the bottom left corner. So the health widget is displaying something on the screen, and the health script is handling all of the game logic behind it. Let's just make sure we've not got anything else. No, I think that's all that we need to do to integrate health here. So let's press F5 and we're in the game and we have some health. We can't actually get hurt. I'm just running around on lava. And this is great if you want to like just run on lava. That's totally cool. But let's make it so that you can't just run around on lava. Maybe it hurts you just a little bit. Or, you know, technically, what's that, like 1,000 degrees? Someone in chat should tell me how hot lava is so that I could have an accurate depiction of how much health you would lose when you touch it. Is it hot enough to kill you instantly? Or is it like, I don't know, this is getting pretty morbid. Anyway, that's what happens when you're making games. Sometimes you have to put horrible things in the way of the player. So we've got some lava, and I want to make it so that maybe when you walk on this section of lava, it damages you. So the way I would approach that, there's a couple of ways you could do it. You could create a voxel mesh with just lava on it, and when you collide with that, it damages the player. You could use a trigger so that if you enter the trigger, it damages the player. I think what I'm going to do is, I think I will go with the collision style. Why is Slayer laughing? Slaying, why are you laughing? Are you going to tell me how dangerous lava is, or do I have to go and find out for myself? That's the real question. I don't know. Let's create a voxel mesh while we're waiting. Create a new voxel mesh. This is going to be called Lava is 850 degrees C. That is extraordinary. Lava hitbox, I will call my terrain. My goodness, that is scary, isn't it? Imagine just walking this close to 800 degrees C. Oh, I mean, You'd catch a tan, wouldn't you? Right. So I've created a voxel mesh lava hitbox, and I'm gonna add it here. Wait, is there already lava? No, that's part of the. It's part of the temple. Let's add our own lava hitbox. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add that there. I'm gonna color it something fantastic, like I don't know, this purple. And what I would say is that this is the way I'm gonna do this. I should always caveat this by saying this is the way I'm gonna do this, and it's not like necessarily the best way. Different situations need different approaches. I am using this way because I think that this is a fairly straightforward way to approach it. I might be wrong. It might be horribly complicated and you might not appreciate this way at all. And if that's the case, let me know in the chat and I will use alternative means to explain. It's like, you know, learning and education and teaching it's really a two-way thing. I don't know what's coming through or not unless you tell me. So yeah, let me know. Let me know if this is not useful or interesting, and I'll very quickly change my entire plan based on one comment. No, I might not do that, but just let me know, and I'll see if I can explain it in another way. I'd use a trigger, but I'm a trapper at heart, says Sinjin. I think Sinjin, it sounds like you do hunting. Yeah, that's cool. I'm going to use this method, but you could totally use a trigger. You could, like, you know, create a little trigger there, and then if I enter the trigger, you just hook up a slightly different event. Okay, so we've got the carpet. The carpet is lava. Imagine the carpet is lava. What I'm going to do with my lava hitbox, I'm going to add script, new script. And this is going to be called damage on contact script. Like that. And damage on contact script, I'm going to edit by clicking edit this asset. And so when I click edit this asset, it will open up an IDE. Which you can see in front of you. This type of scripting language is called Lua. This is an interpreted language similar to JavaScript in that essentially it doesn't need to be compiled. You don't have to sit and wait for it to compile and to error check and all that stuff. It will just, the CPU will just run through your code at runtime. So it doesn't need to be compiled. It gets compiled line by line at runtime. So it's quite a fast way of doing it. It means that when I press F5, we can pretty much instantly start testing rather than sitting and waiting for things to get compiled down. So anyway, if you're into your stuff like that, into your interpreters. So we've got damage on contact. I've just added a script to this mesh and I'm going to delete this function. I'm going to create a new function and it's going to be called damage on contact script. The name of the function will be called contact. I'd always use triggers too, but sometimes the trigger lines can be hard to see for placement, especially above something bright like lava. Yeah, I mean, we can have a look at using triggers as well. That's another way of doing it. There's so many ways you can do. There's loads of things you can do here. Okay, so I've created a function called contact, and I'm expecting one argument, which I've already named player. So when this function gets called by something, it should pass whatever just contacted this or whatever. Yeah. The way I'm going to call this is I'm going to use the onCollision event on my lava hitbox. And the onCollision event should send through an argument of whatever collided with it. And I'm expecting it to be a player. Little Creator says triggers should be expendables like voxel mesh instead of numbers properties. I would see Andy's way as I'm always up to learning something new. Yeah, there's, like I said, you can use triggers. You can, in fact, yeah, we could go through triggers, but this is really about UI. So this is just a means to an end. I'm just going to do this and then you can choose a different way if you like. And that's totally cool. So I'm expecting it to be a player, but let's just double check. So I'm going to do if player is a character, then player apply damage. Oh, so this is a good opportunity to talk about this. So I'm checking that whatever has just hit the lava hitbox is a character. And if it is, then the code between the then and the end will run. So this gets called when something comes into contact with this hitbox. If that thing was a character, so i.e. it wasn't a mesh or a voxel mesh or a light or something else, if it was a character, a player, then apply damage to that player. And the reason I know that this function call exists is because of the API. Let's get the API up. API.crayta.com. And in here, if I go to character, which is what the player is using, and let's look for damage, Control F. Control F in any browser should open up a search box. And we've got damage enabled. So that's cool. But you might be like, oh no, how do I damage the player? That doesn't make any sense. Well, a character is a type of entity, it says there. Entities are everything that exists in your game. So if you go to entity, now look for damage, Control F, damage. We know that character basically extends entity. So it's like a form of entity. A character is a form of entity with some additional funky stuff that you can do, but at its heart, it's an entity, which means that you can do all of these things as well. You can do all of this on a character, and you can do all of this on a character. So if I Control F for damage here, we've got apply damage, and there's these 4 different calls, all with the same name. So they're 4 different functions, all with the same name. And essentially what you can do is, depending on what arguments you put between the brackets, or what parameters you put between the brackets, will depend on which of these functions you call. So you can pick and choose just by changing what you're sending through, and the Crayta will just handle whichever one you choose. So we've got hit result, we've got one with vector shoot direction from enemy, lots of different things here. So it's worth investigating which one is the right one for you. And if we were doing something like a gun game, then there would be a different one from something like, I don't know, what I'm doing. So we want to apply damage when something comes into contact with us. And you don't necessarily have to go and look at the API documentation, api.crayta.com. You don't have to go and look there. If you already know the start of a function, you can just type the start of it and it should come up with the same documentation. It uses exactly the same documentation for the IntelliSense, which is what's coming up with this here, as the Crayta documents there. So this one says apply damage amount damage to the entity by calling on damage on it on any scripts that override that, and also pass a shoot direction vector and from entity. We don't have a shoot direction, but some of these take what's called a hit result, apply damage to the entity and pass a hit result from a world raycast function and a shoot direction vector. It needs to know what direction the damage has come from for other things that might be going on. You might want to take advantage of that in some other UI part in your character. So I'm just gonna apply some damage. Let's apply arbitrarily 100 damage. We know that the floor is underneath them, so we're not going to do the maths for now because I want to get onto the UI stuff. We're half an hour in, haven't even touched UI. Need to get on with that. So I'm just going to assume that the shoot direction is from below, vector.new 0, 0, 1 is up, -1. Yep, -1 would be down, and entity from entity self get entity. Get ET. He's not here. He's home. Okay, apply damage like that. Right, so we've written a script which is basically saying if whatever calls this function wants to apply some damage to a player, do it like that. And we've put that there. So lava hitbox needs to now call this function on collision. So I'm going to bind it by clicking this new binding button. I'm going to drag lava hitbox. It will automatically pre-fill the script, and I'm going to add the event contact. And let's put in here a cheeky print statement, because I like to put in a print the first time I'm doing it, just because we don't know whether this is working or not, and I want to find out. And an easy way to do that is with a print statement. Character touched the hitbox. Like that, like that. Control S, save. Let's see if that works. Character touch the hitbox. Hey. Yeah. There you go. I guess one thing is worth considering. Probably the reason other people... Hey, I was killed. I ran around on too much lava. Yeah, and there's no respawning. But anyway, the important thing is we have our health, and we are getting hurt when we walk on the lava. Hi, Alex. Nice to see you. So when I walk on the lava, I lose 100 health. We know that the print's working, so I don't need that anymore. You can literally watch it. If I get the mouse up, you can literally watch the health going down over here. Let's walk on lava. Ow! New people that are joining are like, he's not walking on lava, he's walking on a 70s carpet. That's not dangerous. Or is it? No, it's not. It's not as dangerous as 800-degree lava that is, yeah, it's pretty hot. Now, a couple of things here. One is our health is working straight away. So with one package, one line of code, health is working. Another thing is we're dying, we're not respawning. I'm not too worried about that. This stream is about focusing on UI. Another thing is it works, but does it fit our theme? Is it looking like a fantasy RPG? Well, the 70s carpet doesn't help it, but it certainly doesn't feel like it just yet. So let's do some tweaking. Firstly, with my lava hitbox here, I'm going to very slightly move it up so that it's not fighting on the for overlap, and I'm also going to make it invisible. Now, the cool thing about making something invisible means that it's still collidable, so we should, in effect, now be walking on lava. Yep, we're still getting hurt. Ouch. Still getting hurt. But we're not walking on 70s carpet anymore. We're walking on 800-degree lava. The next thing to do, so that's cool. And now we're walking on lava. One thing I want to do is just a little bit of modification. I probably don't need to do this, but let's just do this. We want to be in the jungle, and let's just get a little bit of fog on the go. Something like that. Whoa, it's really foggy now. That's too foggy. Too much fog. Small tweaks onto the UI. Yeah. No damage over time. Yeah. You're right, Sinjin. You're absolutely right. This is just one way. Maybe it's like one of those obstacles that you hit once and damages you. The other thing I want to do is move this start location so it's not right there. Let's move it just slightly in and also rotate it 90 so that we're so much better. Oh, adventure camera. UI, right. So let's go. Player health. Okay, so by clicking on this script folder, you can see the different UI elements here. You can see the shop view, you can see the inventory view. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tweak the player health bar over here. I'm going to make it look more like I want it to look, which means it probably won't match the other elements of the UI. So technically, it would be a good idea to do them all. I'm also going to do it mostly in Crayta, but I would advise, if you want to, if you're coming up with UI, it's worth taking a screenshot and then drawing your UI over the top. So what I mean by that is, I'll show you what I mean. So let's say I have this view here. Let's turn on photo mode, spacebar, take a photo so that I've got essentially the view that my player is going to have, and then go into Photoshop or whatever software you want to use. Let's get the old photo up that we just had. This one, put that in here like that, and then hit enter because I'm using Photoshop, and then essentially sketch on here what you want your UI to look like. So just gonna add another layer and just draw on it here. So if I wanted my health bar's down there at the moment at the bottom. So let's just boop. And the reason we're just going to sketch out things like this is because you might want to place it, instead of putting it down there, you might want it up here. And you might want to just, see what it looks like before necessarily sitting there and tweaking your UI in HTML code for ages and then not being happy with it. So it is worth taking a screenshot and essentially, you've got your inventory here. It's always worth leaving this corner blank because that's where your prompts are going to be, and it's worth using that because that's a convention that most people are used to. But you might want to put your health up here. So I'm going to put my health up here. Like some games have the health bar up here. So I'm going to put my health up here. And I'm going to have a little magic bar underneath that's just going to fill up like this. And in terms of XP, I want that to like whoosh, slide in and out whenever I collect some XP. Something like that. Maybe in the middle, maybe at the bottom. Who knows? But it's worth just, even if it's just sketching on a bit of paper, not necessarily using some editing software, it's worth just thinking before you do any HTML widget coding, have a little bit of a plan of where you're going to put everything that you need to put in your game so that it's not overlapping, and it will save you time when you come to writing all of your widget code. Just a quick suggestion there. Okay, so let's now exit the game. So that was literally just an idea. Take a screenshot, sketch over the top of it. You can print it out and draw, not a problem. Yeah, so now we know I'm going to put the health on the top left rather than in the bottom left. Let's have a look at that. So we've got player and the health bar, that's what I want to move. I'm not expecting to use a lobby in this game, but if you are making a game where there's a lobby, you'll probably see the lobby in the top left corner. Anyway, and so you might want to move that to somewhere else or leave it there. It's up to you. So the health widget, let's click on edit this asset for the health widget. Options, source editor split mode, bottom source editor. And I'm just going to widen this a little bit. And the reason I've put that at the bottom is because now I can edit my code and it will immediately update when I press save. So the first thing is that there's this really snazzy kind of cut corner thing, but I want my health bar to be flat, and also it's in the bottom left corner and I want it to be in the top left corner. So let's attack those problems. Firstly, the positioning. Now let's talk about the widget in its entirety. And then we can talk about how to position it. So a widget is made of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript code. Essentially, it's CSS at the top, HTML in the middle, and JavaScript at the bottom. Now, what these three programming languages do they have very different purposes, and they each need each other to work in this situation. So we have CSS, which is styling what we've got. We've got HTML, which is the content. And we've got JavaScript, which is the dynamic functionality that talks to the Lua script. So we have styling, content, and script. Hopefully that makes sense. So in the styling part of it, we can do, change how it looks. And in the content part of it, we can also slightly change how it looks because, we could add more bars, or we could have it a different, use different text or whatever. And then in the model part, in the JavaScript part at the bottom, that's, where we might do any data manipulation as it comes in. The reason it's using these three languages, it's actually using a really modern way of developing websites, which is like a reactive or responsive, a reactive way of developing for the web. So it's more like a component, if you like, than previously where you would write HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, maybe in separate files. By having it all in one file, it creates this single place for this single component. And you have all three elements in their styling, content, and script as well. And it's kind of based on this approach called MVC, Model View Controller. So model would be the data and also the game logic. So any logic that we have in our game essentially works out what is going on, what's the state of the game, how is the player hurt, is the player not hurt, is the player fighting, has the player got a sword in their hand, what's going on in the game. Imagine that as the model. The view is this widget, how it's rendered on the screen. So the view is the rendering, the actual display. So we've got model, which is what's going on in the game. We've got view, which is rendering what's on the screen. And the thing that talks between those two is the controller. Model, view, controller, MVC, architecture. And the cool thing is that all three of those things exist in a single widget. We have the model, which is this JavaScript at the bottom here. And that's really dealing with the numbers as they come in. And the view is the HTML and the CSS. So that's the rendering of it. And the controller is also in the JavaScript. So we have the JavaScript, which has the model in it. And we also have the JavaScript, which is doing some of the controller. So the health widgets, they are built on this idea of MVC architecture, the whole widget thing, the whole reactive web, React.js and Vue.js and all of those web frameworks are kind of built on this idea of components and model view controller. The other thing that we need is this health script. Now, I wonder if you can tell me, which is this? Which is the health script? Is it model, is it view, or is it controller? So the health widget has model view controller all in it. And the health script also contributes to the model view controller paradigm, as it is essentially the model and the controller too. So between the JavaScript in here in the widget and the Lua scripting in the health script, those two things both can host data and manipulate data. They can both be the model hosting the data, and they can be manipulating the data, which is the controller. So if you ever hear the term MVC architecture or model view controller, hopefully you feel a little bit more like, I can kind of understand that. If you've got any questions about it, hit me up in the chat. Don't be afraid to ask things. And if I can answer them, I will. And hopefully that's made a bit of sense. Anyway, back on to tweaking this UI. You probably tuned in to just watch me tweak some things. You weren't expecting a lecture on MVC architecture. Sorry about that. Anyway, okay, so it's got some dummy data in it at the bottom. So this is in our widget code at the moment, and we have our model down here. It even says create.js model, and it's got some dummy data in it at the moment. And it uses that dummy data the controller and the view are using that to render on the screen there. And we can see 500 out of 1,000. And that's because we've got 500 HP out of 1,000 max HP there. The reactive part is in this content here. And we have health proportion, which is, lo and behold, this bit. We have, thanks, Unif. Great to hear that you didn't expect it, but love it. That's super cool. I'm so pleased. We've got health proportion, and here we've got max HP, and here we've got HP, and all of this stuff is coming from here. And so we can determine that between two parentheses and data-bind-value, using this bit of HTML code, this attribute here, we can essentially print out something that we're storing in this JS model down here. And we can also use that data in interesting ways. So because it's numeric data, we can use it to do things like determine the width of the health bar, which you can see there. So here we're doing data bind style width, and it's equal to whatever is stored in health proportion times 100. So at the moment, that would be 0.5. Health proportion, 0.5 times 100. 0.5 times 100 is 50. So the number 50 plus the character percent. So 50%. So we're doing in this chunk here, we're essentially saying, make this thing, whatever it is, make the width of it 50% of whatever its parent is. And so this is how the bar works, right? We've got some data down the bottom, and the HTML references this data, and it uses that to draw it on the screen. So it's super cool, super handy way of doing creating component style widgets. So rather than having inheritance structures and all messy things, like that, it's a pretty straightforward way of it means that it's completely decoupled as well from the rest of the game. So you could add it or you could take it away. It doesn't matter. What we were going to do was move it. Okay, so now that I've explained the essential construction of a widget and how this bit talks to this bit, let's look at moving it in the CSS. So, okay, we've got in our body. So this is our HTML. This is our content from the start body to the end body. And in here we have div, which is essentially an invisible box in HTML. And for every opening tag you have in HTML, you have to have a closing tag. Look, here's an opening tag. Notice that it's got a less than symbol, div, a bunch of words, and then a greater than symbol. And essentially between the less than symbol and the greater than symbol in HTML, that's called a tag. And when it's like this, without a slash at the start, that's called an opening tag. When it's like this, with a forward slash straight after that less than symbol, that's called a closing tag. So we have an opening tag, which is this, and we have a closing tag, which is this. Every opening tag must have a corresponding closing tag. If it doesn't, then all hell breaks loose, everything gets confused, and your widget probably doesn't work. For example, let's delete that. Let's see what happens. Oh no, there's a red line. It hates me. Warning, missing. I'm missing an end div. I'm missing the closing tag. It's literally telling me. So undo that, put it back in. The warning disappears, and peace is restored to the widget code. So we've got that and that. We've got opening tags and closing tags. And I should stress that the first bit straight after the less than symbol is really the important bit with these. Div, span, right? This stuff here, if it confuses you and you don't like it and it's scary, don't stress too much about that stuff, right? That's essentially like telling the HTML what things are, what data to show, okay? But if nothing else, you come away from this stream knowing that in HTML you have opening tags and closing tags, and they need each other, like bread needs butter. That's great. That's awesome. Note, you might be sitting there thinking, hey, there's only an opening tag for this div, but if I press end, oh, there it is. There's the closing tag. Let's put that underneath. There we go. See, we've still got closing tag. We're all good. Odyssey says it's super useful to know how to look through an existing script widget to figure out how it works. Thanks for walking through this process, Andy. No problem. Ask any questions if you get stuck. If you're doing the same thing, if you've got a cool game which uses cool UI, then yeah, talk about it on the chat. Stick it up there. It's great. Okay, we've got opening tags. We've got closing tags. So we've got this body, which is an opening tag, and the corresponding end body tag. This bit here, this is an attribute. So you can put attributes in that opening tag. You can't put them in the closing tag. You can put them in the opening tag though. Look, here's another attribute. Here's an attribute. This is also technically an attribute, even though it's a very specific game face attribute. It's still called an attribute. So we have opening tags and closing tags, and in the opening tag we can have attributes, and we can do things like put our CSS in our opening tag like this. That's what this bit's doing. This code, style equals width 100 VW, height 100 VH. That's CSS that's being injected into that opening tag. We could write exactly the same thing here. In fact, we could just take that out and put that there. Should we do that? Take that, Control X, cut that, put it here in the body. So this is where this brings me neatly onto CSS, right? So rather than having it as style in the tag, we can have it referenced in between opening style and closing style above the body tags in this CSS section up here. So we could put it, it depends how you want to organize it, depends who you are, what your programming preferences are. I'm not going to force you down a direct path. There's loads of different ways of doing this. Yeah, there's no exact solution, but you could put it up here if you wanted to. That's totally fine. And now we don't have that style equals in the body tag. Instead, we've put it in this bit, which is referencing the body tag up here. And the same with these. So notice here, it says .health. Well, scroll down. There's this thing which says health here, but it's class equals health. That doesn't, what does that mean? Well, if you have the word class as one of your attributes, it gives you the opportunity to reference that tag by this name, by whatever this name is in your CSS. So you can put class equals literally whatever you want after that in these quote marks, class equals whatever in the quote marks. And as long as you use exactly the same word up here, then it will be able to, you'll be able to style it up here rather than as style equals quote marks and then a really long load of different styling options. A key part of this, when you use the word class equals, to reference it in your CSS, you need to do dot and then whatever that thing is. Class equals health. Okay, dot health. Okay, that is basically saying this, whatever has the class of health, whether it's a div or a span or a h1 or a body or whatever has the class of health as one of its attributes, hey, do this bunch of styling for that. Okay, and we can see more of that in action. We've got health -- bar, health -- bar _ bar, health text. Lots of different, classes going on here, and each one of those is referenced up the top here with different styling options. And so between the parentheses afterwards, this is a parentheses. So between this and this, we have a bunch of styling options, and these are just things like options. You don't have to have them all. You could have some. You could have loads. You could have not many. To learn more about the different styling options that are available in CSS, I would recommend a couple of websites. I quite like W3 schools. Some people aren't into W3 schools, but you know, I think it's cool. Tutorials, learn CSS. Here is literally so many things that you can, so many styling options that you can use here to style your thing. And it's practice. CSS is you know, the reason I'm writing it, I'm able to write it, is because I've written a lot of CSS. The same with code. It's just practice. It's like learning another language. I'm just going to have a quick sip of water. Hang on. So it's just practice and learning these things off by heart. And, you know, you do it a couple of times and you might remember a few of them. If you remember one every now and then that's totally cool. The typical llama says, yo, Andy, you okay? Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm just having a sip of water. Okay, so we're back on this health bar, which is this health bar down the bottom here. We're doing div class equals health, which is referenced up here, dot health. Cool. So how are we going to position this in the top left corner like we wanted to? Wow. We've got position absolute, which means absolutely position it. Because we've got width 100 VW, height 100 VH in the body tag here, we're essentially saying this widget spans the entire screen. 100 VW means 100% of the viewport width. 100 VH for the height means, you guessed it, 100% of the viewport height. So because we've got our widget the whole screen size, it means where we've got our health class of our div, we can move it around anywhere in that screen. Let me give you an example. We've got position absolute, bottom and left. Position absolute means we can absolutely position it, like I said. It's different from position relative, which is position this relatively to the parent, or position static, which means, I don't know, depends on what browser you're using. Who knows? But this bottom left is what we can use to position things. I'll give you an example. I'm using 2REM, responsive EM, and EM is essentially like a measurement of a unit of measurement in web. So if I put 5 instead of 2, you'll see this bar moves up. Let's do that again. 10 instead of 5, you can see it moves up some more. So this is saying however many, this is position this 10 REMs away from the bottom. Position this 100 REMs away from the bottom. Oh no, it's disappeared. Don't worry. Position this 50 REMs away from the bottom. Well, it's pretty close to the top. I don't know why we're still referencing it from the bottom. Well, because we're using bottom here. But we could put top there. Top. Position this 50 REM away from the top. Oh, position this 5 REM away from the top. Oh, now we're talking. You see? So I'm referencing, rather than saying position it 90% away from the bottom, I'm saying position it 5 REM away from the top. And if I have it the same number as the amount left, that means that the position, this distance here is the same as this distance here, and that looks fairly a bit nicer than having random distances everywhere. You don't have to use REMs. You could do it with percent, position it 20% of the screen height away from the top. You could do VH, viewport height, 20% of the viewport height, which is essentially the same thing. You could do 20 pixels away from the top if you wanted to. Problem with doing it with pixels though is if someone's screen is 4K, that 20 pixels is tiny compared to someone's screen who's 1080p, right? Because there's less pixels. Slater Bburn, hey Andy, what's the difference between PX and REM? Great question. I hope that I've just answered that. PX means pixels. REM means responsive EM. So responsive EM is a unit of measurement that will grow and shrink according to the size of the player's screen, whereas pixels will always be that number of pixels, whether it's 1920 pixels across, i.e. 1080p, or whether it's 3,600 pixels across, i.e. 4K. So, so hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to position it to REM from the top, to REM from the left, and that's positioned it nicely there. Now, next thing I want to do is I'm actually going to straighten this up, and I'm going to change the styling of it. And I'll talk a little bit about what I'm doing as I go, but I'll let my coding do some of the talking too. So essentially, I want to make it a little bit more arcadey. So I'm going to put a border around that health bar. So border solid white, and I'll probably put 1 REM. That's way too big. Yeah. I don't want this corner cut off like that. So that's in this background linear gradient part here. So rather than having a linear gradient, I'm just going to put black. Like that. And I also don't want that bit there. So rather than that, I'm actually just going to pinch this RGBA bit, because I think that's the red. Yeah, that's the red. And it's 0.85 opacity, RGBA, red, green, blue, alpha. And the alpha is a number between 0 and 1, and the rest of the numbers are between 0 and 255. So I'll put that as 1 in the alpha channel there. So it's just brightened it up a little bit. Because what I'm going to do is probably put, can I do this? Opacity 0.5? Yeah. So you can do things like that rather than having it down there. But what I'm actually going to do didn't look great. Not going to lie. Put that there. Oh, wait. Where? Health bar. Here. Yeah, that's better. So I wanted the border to remain opaque, but I wanted the rest of it to be half opaque. Something like that. Also, I wanted it to be shorter. So, height. I'm looking for some height. Where is the height? Aha! Ooh, what does that mean? That means that the height has been set using a variable dash dash health dash bar dash height. So if I'm not sure what that means, the something I could do, Control C, Control F, Control V, and search for that. Where's it being used? And where's it being set? Aha! So here we have a Css Preprocessor, I think it's called. Essentially, before we do anything, before we render anything, this variable needs to be saved on the root. And let's change that to be smaller. Ho-ho! So rather than 4 REM, let's have 2 REM. Now we're talking. So might pump up that border a little bit. Yeah. And what I'm going to do, because I don't really want the numbers there, I'm going to make it not have the numbers. So I've essentially styled it. How I want it. Now I'm going to start changing some of the content. So I'm going to go down here to my health bar, and I'm going to get rid of the text. And that's all in here. Div class health text, span, end span, and div to div, all of that I want gone. Control S, delete, and then Control S. So I've massively simplified it, so it's just the bar now. Cool. Let's just see if that works. So I have full health in my bar up the top there. And if I walk on lava, ouch. 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 That might be something fun we can do. We could make it hurt. Like you hop on it. And then it will fire the onCollide event again. So any questions, let me know. My character's looking a little bit poorly because they've died. One thing I thought when I was doing that was that bar is a bit big in general. So we could make it a little bit smaller. And this is where we come into, you know, there's lots of different ways you could do that part of it. The health thing we've got here. We've got display flex baseline. Where am I setting the width? 100%. Width, 25 rem. Let's change that to, I don't know, 5 and just see what happens. Oh, 10 rem for the width. 15. Yeah, something like that. Let's make it a bit skinnier, shorter again. And that was up here in the health bar height. Even smaller. There. Okay, cool. So that's essentially one of the things I wanted to look at today, was customizing that health bar and just looking at how we could make it slightly different. You know, we can tweak it, we can change it. You could change the color, but I think that red really ties into health quite nicely. Okay, cool. That's what I wanted to look at with the health. Now let's start to think about adding some kind of collectibles, sweet collectibles to the game, and some magic. How are we going to add some magic to the game and make it so that we've got a bar that is essentially filling up as we collect magic? So I'm going to break this down into a few stages, and I'll get as far as I can. So the way I would approach this would be to start with something that we can already collect. And we have a few of those things. We've got currency. And we also have resources. If I put some currency in the game. Hey, where did it go? Oh, it's an invisible thing. Okay, so we've got a resource spawner which is spawning apples. Let's use that instead. So we can walk up to an apple, and if you look over here in the bottom right corner, you should see it says press E to pick up resource, and I pick it up and it gets added to my inventory. So that's really cool. And what will happen, because it's got a respawner attached to it, is it will come back, and I can essentially tweak how long it takes to come back. Hey, it's back. Oh, I'll have another apple. Thank you. So we've got resources spawning, but what if I want them to be a different thing, a different resource? So we've got shop resource as well. That's a different thing. Resource spawner. So let's have a look at the template for resource spawner. And in here, I've squished it all, haven't I? And I've also, let's put this back to full screen editor mode so that I can, see the script full screen. Pick up spawner, and what's it picking up? It's trying to pick up shop resource. So this resource spawner spawns the shop resource. And that has a bunch of stuff already attached to it. And so we can make something similar to this, and basically by duplicating something we've already got and then changing it, tweaking it, and adding our own spin on that. So I'm going to make my own, essentially my own type of resource, and then display it in the inventory in a different way. Let's do that. So we're going to create a duplicate. We don't need to create a duplicate resource spawner. We just need to create a different resource. Interestingly, it doesn't have the apple. We will start. We will go from scratch. Shop resource. Get rid of you. Okay, so I'm going to create a magic thing to pick up. I'm going to use an orb, magical orb. What color is magic? Blue? Yeah. Blue, normal sized. This is going to be my magical pickup opportunity. Let's add, with that selected, let's add a trigger to it. So I've added that mesh to my game world. I'm going to click on primitives, click on trigger, and put that there. And the trigger's there because that's going to be what I pick up. That's going to fire the event to pick this thing up. So we've got an orb, and attached to that is a trigger. On my orb, I'm going to click entity add script, and this is probably needs an inventory item spec script, and I can check is currency, and we don't need a grip because it's a currency. I'm essentially going to make, I should explain what I'm going to do. I'm going to make magic and I'm going to make it as a currency, and it's going to be its own currency, and I'm going to create a bar as part of the inventory that essentially captures how much magic I've got. That's an interesting way of doing it, Andy, you might say. It might be better to... I was going to do that, but the more I think about it, the more I'm like, actually, it's probably better to create our own magic widget. So I'm going to do that instead. So let's go off piste a little bit here. I'm going to walk into the apples use the trigger for... I'm just going to read this. The apples use the trigger for interact targeting. It's easier to click on the apple with a bigger interactable area. Yeah. Thanks, Sinjin. I'm going to use the trigger to collect when I enter the trigger. But yeah, you're bang on. It means you can interact with a bigger area. Little creator, see you later. Thank you so much for joining. I hope that it was informative and useful. So, got some magic. We are going to add a script, and this is going to be my magic collectible script. Magic pickup. I'm following something Sinjin said on Discord the other day was 2 words for the name of a script, and I love that, and I'm going to use that as much as I can. It does make it a lot easier to figure out what things are, he said after calling something damage on contact script. Magic pickup script. So essentially I want one function called pickup, and I'm expecting to be passed a player. And if the player is a character, remember I'm just guarding against if something else entered the trigger and I hadn't looked after it, then send to script. So I'm going to send an event to the script that the player has on it. And I'm going to write the script to capture this event in a minute. Pickup magic is the name of the event with a capital P, because I'm that kind of person. And I'm expecting to just pass it an amount of magic. For now, it's going to be 1. Send to script, pick up magic, and let's just destroy this as well. It's not necessarily best practice to keep creating and destroying things in your game, and instead using object pooling to do that. But for the purposes of this demonstration, where I'm literally just looking at mostly trying to focus on the UI, and I keep spending a lot of time not doing that. For the purpose of this, I'm just going to destroy this thing. Okay. We will also be adding sounds and effects and things like that in a minute. So when we enter this trigger, on trigger enter, we are going to call that function I just wrote. So I'm going to drag and drop the magical orb blue onto this binding. It's going to automatically select magic pickup script, and then I'm going to click on the drop down and choose pickup player. And so what I'm expecting to happen It's always a good idea for a little bit of a thought experiment before you press run. What are you expecting to happen? And you could, if you've written loads of code, you could also go, what am I expecting to happen? Read through my code and then test. So what am I expecting to happen? Well, I'm expecting the player to walk into that trigger box. At that point, this function runs. I check if the player is indeed a player, is indeed a character, and it isn't just some random boulder that's fallen into it. Then I'm going to send the event pick up magic to all of the scripts that are attached to the player. And then I'm going to destroy whatever this thing is. And because I've just read this script back to myself, I can see there's an error. Self destroy, that's going to just try and destroy the script. I need to self get entity destroy, which will destroy whatever the script is attached to. So good job I did that. Press F5 to test it. And let's collect this bit of magic by walking into the invisible trigger. Collect. Brilliant. Okay, nothing has happened, but it disappeared, which is a good sign because it means that it was destroyed, hopefully. Cool, so I've done that. Now let's go and capture this pick up magic event and create some kind of UI to show that we've caught some magic. So let's go to the player. Now, sometimes I get asked, should I make this thing on the player or should I make this thing on the user? And it's a really good question. What's the difference between the two? Well, the player is your character that's in the game. And the stuff that is on the player will last whilst the player is alive. For example, the health. Each time you spawn a character, it needs some health associated with that character. If the health was associated with the user, that's also doable, but it makes less semantic sense because the user sitting there playing the game doesn't have the health. The character in the game has the health. So there's a little bit of semantics there. Cool. So this magic gathering, does that need to happen on the player or the user? That depends on whether we're going to persist the amount of magic we've gathered between player deaths. If our player dies and respawns and we expect to still have that amount of magic we collected, then it needs to go on the user. If the player dies and respawns and we expect to have no magic and start from scratch again, it should go on the player. So it's really down to you, the game you're working on, your decisions as a game designer. I think in hindsight, I'm going to put the magic on the user. And there's also already some UI on the user because it's got this UI which is kind of talking to the user. There's the inventory and the sort of the logic behind the inventory, but then the actual inventory itself is on the player. So you can do this in lots of different ways. Yeah. So interestingly, the way the inventory is working here is another way of doing it, where you have this the model and the logic on the user, and then you have a separate model that the user is then talking to this model on the player, and then that's updating the widget. So that's another way you can do it. I'm gonna follow that. So player, create child script folder, new script folder. This is going to be called my magic view, and then I'm going to do entity add script, new script, magic view controller. Actually, what's the inventory view script? I'm just going to follow the guideline, the same conventions that the other thing does here, just because magic view script, just because it means that everything is nicely tied in, and if ever I'm like searching for things, then it's going to be easier for me to figure out what I need to search for. So here, let's put name magic counter. Type is a number. How much magic have we got? And what was the name of my event that I was calling. It was called pickup magic. So this center scripts thing here, that's going to fire an event on every script on the player. And pickup magic is the name of the function. So I can capture that event here, like that. So rather than calling init, which is called once at the start of the game, or the start of when this thing spawns, I have just changed the name of that function to pickup magic. The way I'm doing this, I'm double click on this, and it will highlight from punctuation to punctuation, whether that punctuation is a space or a comma or a full stop or whatever. Double click that, Control C, and then I went over here, double clicked on init, and Control V replaced it with pickup magic. I'm also sending the number 1, so let's go in here and amount. We'll capture that number 1 and it will be plopped into a variable or an argument called amount. Yeah, sometimes I call these arguments, sometimes I call them parameters. I'm always interested into what you think it should be. Let me know in the chat. Feel free to fire away with reasonings. I'm expecting some definitions and how wrong I am to be calling things parameters. Anyway, pickup magic should fire this function. Let's add our pickup magic amount to how much we have in our counter. Boom. So this, this property will now equal whatever was in that property plus whatever amount has been sent through here, whatever this number we've sent through to be. And we'll start from 0. And what I'd like to do before we get into any UI stuff, let's just print that number out. Magic counter self.properties.magic counter. So what I tend to do is I break it down. I think about, okay, what do I need to accomplish? So what's the flow of the logic here? Player walks into an empty trigger box, destroy the thing that's in there, you know, the magic orb, the sword, whatever it is you want them to pick up, fire an event over to the player to tell them to store something on the player character or on the user and display that in some way. So I'm working through the logic that the game is taking. I'm working through the same logic in the way I'm coding my scripts. That isn't necessarily the exact, you know, that might be different for you. And in fact, sometimes I might even create the widget first. What do I want this thing to look like? What do I want it to display? And then go and write the game logic to tie in with how I want the widget to look. There's different ways of doing it. Top down, bottom up approaches, you know, whatever you want to do there. Sinjin says print is my most used command. Yeah, it's literally if you are ever stuck and not sure whether something is working, whether a function is being called, you know, why something isn't working, you can use print every other line to work out what logically is going on with variables, with logic, all of that stuff. Use print. You know, it's a really good tool to just dive in and go, right, is this function even being called? Just print test, see whether it is. Don't print test on every single function because it will make no sense. Anyway, and I'll show you some more benefits of print in a second. Let's just test this. So I'm expecting this to fire. I'm expecting to see some kind of print when I walk into this thing. So press O to open the console. This is where my print statement will appear in a minute. And walk into that. Hey, magic counter 1. Yes. Okay, so collecting the thing talks to the player. Woohoo, victory lap. Ouch, I burnt myself slightly. Okay, cool. Let me know if I'm going too fast or too slow. It's hard to judge pacing when I can't see anyone. And there could be people out there like, oh man, I have no idea what you're talking about. And other people are like, oh man, I'm so bored. So yeah, let me know. Pacing. Am I too fast? Too slow? What's going on? Okay, magic counter works. We got our magic counter. Woohoo! Here. Which is great. So we've collected 1 magic. Big deal. Now what do we do with that 1 magic? Well, the next thing we need to do is display to the user that they have done that. And we're going to do that with a widget. Hooray! So let's go to our player template. Let's go to Magic View and let's add entity, add UI widget, new UI widget, Magic widget. Cool. And let's open that for editing. I'm going to get rid of some of these scripts so it's not so confusing having like everything up here. So I'm going to close that by clicking the middle mouse button. I don't want any of the health stuff, although I probably will open that in a minute to reference it. Cool. So I've got my Magic widget. I'm going to close this console as well so I've got more space in here. I don't need that open right now. Here is my Magic widget. And if I press F5, there, perfect. Wait, it needs a little adjustment. Let's do that. Player, Magic View. Okay, let's make a really awesome Magic widget. So my health looks like this, and I want a little blue bar, sort of similar, maybe a bit shorter. You could also do like little circles that fill up, boop, 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 one step at a time. We can do that eventually. With transitions and everything. It'd be great. It'd be beautiful. But let's start by just making a little magic bar that just fills up. So whenever I'm doing my widget code, I do options, source, editor, split, and I put it at the bottom like that. I know that someone found that useful. That is a really handy way of doing it. If you're ever making websites, usually you'd have like side by side like this. So whenever you're doing something visual, really, really helps. Okay, so we don't want any of that. Right. I'm just going to remove things that we don't need. And then I'll get to changing things around. Div class sign. Let's call it something more usable. Magic sign. Magic. Oh no, it's broken it completely. Don't worry. Magic. Change that to that, and there we go. I've deleted what was in Magic, because we're gonna not have text. We're gonna just have a little bar. So we probably don't need this font face thing here or that. Don't need any of that. And notice that this widget code is slightly different from this player health code in that we are, instead of doing making this the full width and height like we do on the player health with, let's get this widget open so we can compare and contrast. Like this body, 100 VW, 100 VH for the width and height. This magic widget, the default widget code doesn't do the same thing. It has the width and height here, so it's slightly different. And that's what I was saying. There's lots of different ways of doing this. So what I might do is I might actually copy this. In fact, we don't need the Rubik font family there either. Might just copy that and paste it here. So we've got that. And let's change the background to that. And there we go. So it doesn't look any different, but I'm just sort of aligning it to really be really similar to this health widget. So get rid of all that. There we go. And one other useful tip that I will point out is to use horrible garish colours. Well, that's not that bad. It's quite nice. Like a peach. I use hot pink a lot when I'm doing widget stuff, because you can clearly see the boundaries of divs and bodies and all of your different tags, and it's a lot easier to work things out when you've got horribly clashing but very, very visible colours. And then you can come back later and make a beautiful colour scheme that makes complete sense. But whilst we're debugging, let's debug visually and in our code. So do both at once. It can kind of help. So I don't want this, but I'm going to have our magic div. It needs some kind of background. So let's make this background red. And notice it doesn't have any kind of presence, right? We've got our pink body, which is this bit, but the magic div, which is this, doesn't have a width or a height or any like dimensions. That's the word I was looking for. It took me forever. So let's add that. So how do we do it with the other bar? Well, we had position absolute, and we had top 2 rem, left 2 rem. Do you remember that? We had it with the health widget. Position absolute, top and left 2 rem. Color, display. We could put display flex in there. Like that. And then in this health, we also had, if you went down to the health dash dash bar here, that's where we set our width and height, wasn't it? Like that. So I could do the same again. Let's just check. Display flex, yeah, because we're using flexbox. That should probably work. Dot magic dash dash bar. Let's stick with the same conventions. That's kind of useful. Like I've been talking about, it makes it quite nice when it's all matching up. Magic dash dash bar and div. And in magic dash dash bar, let's make the width 15 rem and the height 1 rem. Oh, red isn't a great color to contrast pink. There we go. So we've got our little magic bar, but the problem is it's in exactly the same position as this one, as the health bar. So let's just tweak this now. So firstly, don't want a background there. Let's get rid of that. Let's not make it green. Let's make it a very vibrant poppy blue. But we want that on the bar. So let's just, for now, get rid of the background green and make a border white 1 rem solid. And let's actually just borrow the border that we already wrote for this. Like that. So we've got our border for our magic. Now, let's also put a bar in our magic bar. So the way this worked was we had health dash dash bar, which was the surrounding health bar, which is this surround. And then we had health dash dash bar underscore underscore bar, which was the inner bar for that div. I'm going to slightly deviate. I probably shouldn't. Magic dash dash bar underscore underscore bar. Okay. So now we have our inner bar there. Let's copy that. Dot that. For now, we're going to do 50% width. This should be display flex. Possibly. Oh, height. Height 100%. Background green. There we go. Okay, so we've just from scratch written our own bar. Magic is blue, right? That magic thing was blue. Was it blue? Yeah, it was blue. Great. Okay, so we have our magic view. Now remember, it's over the top of our health bar. It's almost directly over the top. So let's change that. The background should be black like the other one is. Yeah, and the opacity of the bar 0.9. Background. Yeah. Mana is usually blue. Yeah, slaying. Thanks, got my back. Is magic the same as mana? That's a good question. Who's got an answer for that? Okay, this blue isn't right. RGBA. RGB. So I want it to be a bright blue. So red 100, green 100, blue 255. 1. Maybe tone down the red a little bit. Yeah. Maybe even more. That's cool. It's like a brightish blue. We could do some linear gradients and stuff in a bit if we've got time. We're at 5:30, so got half an hour. I think it's the same. Thanks, Laying. Yeah, I think it's the same. Let's just go with that. I'm sure someone somewhere is like, actually, no. If you're that person, let us know, because we're all learning here. Okay. The next thing we need to do, so we have made a fairly stylish bar. It's still in the same place, so let's bump it down some. Not like that. Let's change this top like we talked about before, so that it's bumped down. So if we have that and that, in fact, let's just test. Let's just test. Does that look okay? It probably could go up a little bit, and I might make it a little bit shorter just to really distinguish the two. So we'll bump it down. We'll have 5 REM, and we'll have the width of it 10, and maybe not black backgrounds, maybe like it's an invisible background, just to make them look different enough that, yeah, we can add some icons and stuff as well. That'll be fun. But for now, let's get the bar working, because we're writing this from scratch, aren't we? So the next thing we need to do, so we've done our view, we need to do our model and our controller here. So let's create our model. I don't want any of that. I don't want any of that. I am just going to do it using this create.js model, and I'm just going to use the data here. So, and I actually just want probably one number. It's going to not be called data, it's going to be called magic. And this number is going to be called percent filled. Oh, even better, amount. And I will have another one called max amount. And amount isn't going to be sign title. The amount is going to be, let's say I've collected 5 magics. And let's say there's a maximum of 10 magics. Let's get the old preview back up. So what I want to do is I want to make this bar essentially reflect what's going on down here with our max amount and our amount. And so if our amount is 5 and our max amount is 10, we should be thinking this should be 50% full, right? 5 is half of 10. 10 divided by, 5 divided by 10 is a half. So should be half full. That's the whole point. So in my bar underscore bar div here, remember this was the bar that I can change. If I change the width of it, we should be able to hard-codedly see what I'm doing. Hard-codedly is now a new word that I've made up. So if I change this number to different percentages, you should be seeing that blue bar moving up and down, right? That's what we want to essentially replicate, but dynamically using the code in our game. So rather than it being width 50% set by the CSS up here, I want it to be width 50% set by some reactive injected attribute HTML stuff down here. And we can totally do that. So let's just go and have a look for game face. Coherent Labs here. So Coherent Labs game face. This is where we can find the documentation. Click on that. Here we go. And JavaScript. Here we go. So that's how I've got to my documentation. And I can go to data binding overview, which gives you a neat explanation in what is going on with the widgets in Crayta. So this gives you an overview and written detail in how the things are working. And essentially what we're doing is we're using a reactive way of creating a widget, which means we update the model and the HTML automatically updates itself. So we update the JavaScript model, the coherent game face looks after everything else. And we do that by using these fancy attributes, data dash bind dash. And then lots of different things we can do there. We can even do conditionals and iteration in there if you fancy it. But for now, we're going to keep it simple because we actually just want, we can even print out values. We actually just want the width, data-bind-style-width. And it's expecting a string or a number in pixels. And the string would be some numbers and some text. So that's where you might want to use different units. For example, percent or rem or something like that. And if you're not using a string, then it will assume whatever numbers you send it, you're sending it a measurement in pixels. We're going to use a string because we're going to be using percent, because I don't want to tightly couple my bar in pixels to the size that I set in pixels. For example, maybe next time I want my magic bar to spread the entire width of the screen. Do I want to come back into my widget and have to recode the whole thing to match the number of pixels on not just my screen, but anyone's screen with different resolutions? No. I want to use percentages. I want to use a responsive way of writing my CSS. So that's why we're going to use percent. So data-bind-style-width equals open, close quotes. Let's open and close parentheses here. And let's grab the thing we want, magic.amount. And then outside of those parentheses, plus open, close single quotes, because we're inside double quotes, so it won't really understand what I mean if I start putting more double quotes in, because it'll think, wait, you finished the attribute? That doesn't make any sense. So we chop and change. We use the single quotes when we're trying to put a string in between our double quotes. Hopefully that makes sense. Put a percentage, and we've got essentially 5%. So it's already updated the bar. So by putting this in here, it's going, okay, get how much is stored in the amount in the model. So it goes and gets 5. Add a percent character to the end of that, and change the CSS of this div so that it has the width of that, of whatever that was. So in this case, 5%. If I change the amount now in here to 50, save that, it's 50% and it's updated there. Let's change it to 502%. Whoa, it's too much. So it's going to be your job as a developer to, not let that happen. Anyway, so that's cool. We did 5%, but we wanted a percentage out of max amount, right? So we can actually do that. We can do magic.amount over magic.max amount. Can we do it like that? Yeah. Can we? No. We'll have to do it a different way. So we can do it outside over parentheses, end parentheses. Still doesn't quite work. That's because we need this bit to be doing arithmetic, and then we need to add it. Wait, that should totally work. Yeah, okay. Interesting. So we've got brackets, bracket there. What if I do .toString? No. Okay, we'll have to do it this way then. I thought that would work, but it doesn't. So magic.amount, and rather than sending a max amount and an amount, what we'll do is we will just send through a number, a percent there. Because in the health widget, you see, it does this times 100 thing. So I thought we'd be able to reference another unit, but I guess not. Okay, so we're going to send through a percentage. So that's what we need to do in our magic view script. So we've got our magic counter. Cool. and it's counting up 1 every time. Let's put a max amount here. Name equals magic counter max. Type is a number. Like that. And now let's set that to 10. So we've essentially made a property. We've got a property which is tracking how much magic we've picked up. And now we've got a property which is going to be like the max amount you can have in the bar. And the idea is that you fill the bar up in this game. Your game might be different. The idea is that you fill the bar up, and once you get to 10 magic, you can't get any more magic. Or it might be that you get to 10 magic and then you level up your magic and then you can get more magic. I don't know. RPG, mechanics, whatever you want to do there. For me, it's just that that's the max. And so we've got magic counter, self.properties.magic counter. Yeah, we don't need to print that out anymore. We're just increasing the amount here. And then we need to send it to the widget. So let's say I do self get entity dot the name of the widget, which is magic widget dot js dot data dot amount equals self.properties.magic counter. So essentially take whatever is in this property and put it into the model in the widget. Put it into this number here. So, and that's what that line of code's doing there. But this is not going to work. And I will show you that it's not going to work. Because error, attempt to index field magic widget. I don't know what magic widget is. Can anyone tell me why? What's happened? It's broken. And the reason is, if you look here, it says server. Servers don't have widgets. The server doesn't even have a visual display. The server is running this game headless. It's running it in its mind. It's imagining it. It's not seeing it like you and I. So the server has no reason to have a widget, and so widgets don't get displayed on the server. And so code that's running on the server, like this code here, when it tries to grab a widget, the server's like, that makes no sense. I don't have any widgets. So what we need to do is essentially send that back to whoever is controlling the player that just picked the thing up and say, hey, your character just picked up some magic. You probably want to know that. So let's display it. So when we do pick up magic, we need to then update our widget. So let's write an update widget function. Magic view script, update widget. And we'll have the amount in here. And what we'll do is this will be where we update our widget. So we'll take that line of code and we'll put it in update widget. And then we will call that update widget function using a special line of code, self send to local, open quote marks, update widget, comma, self.properties.magic counter. Okay, let's see if that works now. So the reason the bar is already half full is because I'm not resetting that at the start, and we need to look at that in a minute. But let's pick up the blue dot now and trying to modify binding data.amount with value 0, but no binding with that path exists. So at least it's running on the client, but now it's having a problem, and it's because I used data and not magic. Remember I renamed it magic? Remember that time that I did that all those years ago? And now it's come back to haunt me because I've tried to set a number in data which doesn't exist. At least it, failed gracefully and didn't throw a wobbly. Hey, so now we don't have anything up there, but we should do. So let's just print what's coming through. Print amount. We're nearly there. We're on the last little bit. Ah, not the lava. Amount is 1. Cool. So 1, remember, we needed it to be 50. So 1, the reason it's not showing much is because there's only a tiny slither. So now it's a case of kind of balancing the things we have, the components we have. We have this magical orb, we have the magic view script, we have the magic widget script. So the magical orb, the magic pickup script, at the moment it's sending through the number 1 to our player. It's saying, hey, you picked up 1 magic. This pickup magic function runs. Let's make this full screen again. This pickup magic function runs and it updates how much we're currently got stored. And we increase that by however many we've just picked up. And then, because this is running on the server, our player collided with the orb on the server. So all of the code from that point runs on the server unless we do self send to local, which says, hey, send this, call this function only on the player's computer who is controlling the player that ran into the orb. Don't call it on all of the other players' computers because everyone will end up with magic because that player collected 1 bit, and that's not what we want. That's sometimes a bug you see fairly regularly, is someone will walk into a magical orb and then everyone gets magic. And it's because it's doing something like send to all clients instead of send to local. So worth bearing that in mind if you're experiencing that bug. And then here we've got update widget. And so we're calling this function, we're sending through a number, whatever that number is, doesn't matter at the moment. Here we print out how much we've picked up, which we can get rid of now because we know that's working. And then we're setting the widget model to update to that. So what I would like to do is probably go to my magic pickup script, create a property in here called amount, type as a number. And then instead of sending 1, send self.properties.amount. And then let's say a small orb is worth 10. And we could even make this into a template, create a new template, small magic pickup. Like that. Go to our templates tab, find some small magic pickups. These are really fun because now I can like use a load of these to lead the player through the level wherever I want them to go. Maybe I'll lead the player. Yeah, maybe they should be going to explore this area over here. And what I could do here, even cooler, right, is let's duplicate our small magic pickup. Let's make a big magic pickup. Yeah, more magic for everyone. And big magic pickup, plop that here. It's still called itself small magic pickup, big magic pickup, like that. And let's make that one worth, I don't know, 50, like that. They're all like halfway through the floor at the moment. So I'm just going to select all but the first one I put in and just raise them up a little bit. Hey, pay attention. Up. Okay, so should be able to collect all these things. Let's try it out. Still got some minor debugging to do. There we go, look at that bar filling up. Oh, it's so juicy. Collecting the magic. Huh. Maybe they want me to solve this puzzle. Oh, wow, look. Yay. Okay. So, made a magic pickup. The bar updates nicely. Couple of things. We need to set it to be 0 at the start. Function magic view script. Now, I could go into my magic widget and say, oh, the amount is 0. But that's not very useful if I come back to it and want to style it and make it look fancy and super cool. So, what I'm going to do is just do local init and reset. Now, don't forget, this is on the player, so local init will get called on the client's computer who is controlling this player whenever this player is spawned. So if I die, I lose my magic. Yeah, that's why locators are used. Mesh goes under locators for easy placement in the world, Sinjin says. True, that is a good way to do it. And it also means if you're collecting things and you want your character to be able to hold them, you can reposition them really nicely too. Let's say I wanted to hold this magic. I could have it hovering nicely in front of the player. I could even have it animated if I'd used a locator. Just for brevity, I haven't done it this time. Just didn't want to overcomplicate it. I think everyone could have managed that. So maybe that's a really good tip for next time for me, to like just go for it, just use locators and stuff like that. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Sinjin, that would be a better way of doing it. And I know I say a lot, oh, there's loads of different ways of doing it. Well, that is probably a better way to do it. Okay, collect the things. So notice this time, I don't know if you saw, it started at 0. The other thing I want to do is change this orb to be jumbo orb, because it's a big pickup. What else did I want to do? Yeah, I think that's it for now. I might do a little bit of last little ditch bit of fancy CSS. Okay, collecting the things. Oh look, there's some secrets over here. Oh, there's a big orb. Wow, it wasn't more. Is that the one? Oh, it was that one. Come here. This is why you use locators. So this is the one that should be the jumbo. This should not be the jumbo. But it could be quite fun to do, like, where's my small magic pickup? Small, like these. Yeah, like that. There you go. You found something. This now gives me like the opportunity to, I could go and update my template, my magic template, and make it look really nice. I could make it hover, maybe with some effects, maybe with some simple lights. Draw people's attention, draw players' attention to it. Oh, can anyone spot the issue? My bar has gone way too far. So we need to cap that bar so that it can't go too far. So we could do that in lots of different places. We could do it in our magic view script. We could say if self.properties.magicCounter is greater than 100, then self.properties.magicCounter equals 100. That would then be one way of capping it. Another thing we could do instead of that, which is probably better in a multiplayer game, which all of these games will be, is to check the magic counter, right? So let's go to our player magic view. Magic counter max is 100. So we check our magic counter when we pick up the magic. Player's magic equals player. Find script property. And we're looking for magic counter. And we can say if player's magic is less than 100, then, and I'm hard coding for now, but it'll be better to have it reference the max here. So if the player has less than 100 magic, pick up this magic, that amount. Now the player might have 90 magic and this might have 50. Now I think you should still be able to pick it up, but I think it should cap your limit at 100. So it's actually both of these things. So don't pick it up if the player has 100. If their player's maxed out their magic, don't let them gobble up all the magic before anyone else can get to it. And similarly, when they have picked it up, check that it's not gone over 100. If self.magic counter is greater than 100, then self.properties.magic counter equals 100. So max it at 100. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's give that a quick whirl, see whether that works. So start from 0, collect some magic. Like this. Oh, look, it's not letting me pick it up. So I've reached 100, but the bar isn't full. So I'm going to go and quickly check my logic. But it's working to some extent. I think that the bar just isn't updating after it does a thing. Yeah, not sure what's going on there. I noticed it at the start when it was setting it to 0, even though it was more than that. Will this be published? Great question. Yeah, I'll tell you what I will do. So there's this minor bug, and I'll look at fixing that, but we're drawing to the end of the stream now. So I want to make sure that, yeah, it should be working. It's not working. I want to make sure that you can use this. So I'm going to publish it right now. You'll be able to grab this magic thing that I'm doing. So I'm going to create a package. Create a new package. This is going to be called Andy's Magic Bar. Magic Bar? Collect? Yeah. I'm going to call it Andy's Magic Bar. Which some people is going to think is like a tavern. Someone might think it's like, I don't know, a bar in music. Just one note. It's not either of those things. It's a package of, you know, a counter. Magic counter. It's probably better. Yeah. I think you're right, Drycoast. I think that the first pickup is actually setting it to 0 for some reason. So I might plus. I'll figure it out. I'll do it off stream and then I'll push an update. So magic counter, the counter and magic pickup from Andy's stream adventure UI exclamation mark. Superfluous punctuation, anyone? Yeah, sure. Chuck it in. So you could have the small magic pickup, the big magic pickup. It should come with the magic pickup script. Yep. I also want the script folder. Ooh, but I haven't made that a template. I will copy that and I'll do this again. I forgot what I called it now. Anyway, player. Let's rename that to player magic view, of course. Player magic view. This is a really good tip that I think everyone should know, is naming something like player or user at the start, especially a script folder like this, is really clear then to put it on the player. It's a convention that's sort of come around on its own and I love it. So doing that is useful. So I'm going to click on this script folder, create new template, and this is my player magic view. I'm calling it the same thing. Yeah, I'm doing that. Create new package. Let's go back in here. Andy's magic counter. Did I call it that? Yeah, probably. Big magic, little magic, small magic, and player magic view. Let's just check it's got all the scripts. Magic view script, magic pickup script, player magic view, small magic pickup. Cool, cool, cool. Okay, I'm going to take a look at the issue where it's not quite updating to the top, and it also is slow at the start. I think it's something really straightforward. But yeah, let's create that. That is now all out there in the big wide world. You can find it by typing Andy's magic counter. Hey, the counter and magic pickup from Andy's Stream Adventure UI. That's where you can find it. Some things that I think you should do if you're going to go and immediately go and play with this and pick it up and have a look at it. I mean, I should have commented some of this and done a whole package release thing on the forum. But some things I think you might want to look at are in the Magic widget. Have a look at transitions. So in the W3 Schools CSS, you should be able to find CSS transitions. You can use transitions to make nice easing between points. Notice when I did it, the bar just filled up like immediately. You can use CSS transitions, really simple, right? You just put transition width 2s, means take 2 seconds to change the width from what it was to what it's gonna be. Super simple and adds so much polish. So definitely check that out. Definitely have a look as well at, instead of just doing a flat color like I did, have a look at background colors and especially gradients, wherever they are. Gradients. Yep, here you can make some really nice, cool, I don't know, blue gradients. That would be fun. Feel free to style it. Also, you might want to add a property to add an orb icon next to it. I think that would be very, very clear. You could have an orb icon next to that one. You could put a health icon next to the other one. That look dope. Yeah, there's a lot more you can do to extend what we've done here. Hopefully this has been useful. I've really dug deep into the UI. And that was with the intention that we do a few more UI ones, but now I don't necessarily need to dig as deep in the future. I'll gently go over it each time, sure, but we can look at some more crazy UI things that we can do. Hopefully this has been interesting and useful. Let me know. You can join our Discord, discord.gg/Crayta. Head over there, ask anything in the Ask Anything channel. I'll be hanging out there for a bit, and also we have an amazing community, so many lovely people, always willing and helpful to and wanting to help each other make awesome games. That's my first stream. Hey, I did it. Yeah, any other questions or anything like that, hit me up on Discord. Ask anything in the Ask Anything channel. And I look forward to seeing you in the game. Take care then, everyone. Goodbye now.